Hello, everyone. Welcome to this conversation we are about to have, sadly, about the mist. I'll be honest, this one was tough. This one was really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh. I was really excited to have this conversation about the mist and really how it affects community, how fear affects community, how different leaders leverage fear to impact and influence a community. We are going to be talking about this with my friend James Gerber, who recommended we talk about this, and I don't know if I've forgiven him yet. So, James, tell people a little bit about yourself, the work that you're going to be bringing to this conversation, and what your initial memories, first time you encountered The Mist, the 2007 film.
Hi, I'm James. I'm here partially because I have a master's of arts and theology and culture from St. Stephen's University, which is the Layla School that's located in St. Stephen's, New Brunswick, Canada. I did a couple years of study there, focusing with a thesis that kind of concluded about Søren Kierkegaard and authentic community. Um, that ties into the Mist in ways we will probably understand in
Oh my
very
gosh.
short order. But yeah, I mean, you know, uh, I kind of wrote a paper kind of trying to take sort of contradictory ideas of like the importance of individuality, being your own person, and also tying it back to, okay, but we need that to build actual communities because the current people who are building communities in Christian spaces are, you know, these people trying to build these like right wing evangelical circles of, I can't find charitable words.
I can't
I
find charitable
apologize.
words. In itself, James, I feel like that was charitable to not.
Yeah, you know, Anyway, a part of the whole core of that is Kierkegaard was a guy who hated being told that you had to be Christian and was more like, no, Christianity is something you earn. It's something you work towards. It's something you're always working towards. You don't just get to get somebody say, you believe what we believe. Now you're chill and everything is fine.
Yeah, done and done. No,
Yeah, exactly. It's the, oh, you're bad because you believe these things. But once you stop believing those things, then you're good and can go to heaven. But, we can get into spiritual terror and fire and brimstone preaching later. That
I don't think we're going to
that
be
we'll
able
talk
to
about that
avoid
enough here.
Well,
Anyway,
how are you introduced to the mist, James?
yeah. I mean, so a couple was it a year ago? Time is messy. A year ago, we talked about Annihilation.
Yes.
And at the time, I think we had an early conversation about like existential horror and like cosmic horror in terms of like, the monster isn't the thing you fear, it's like the world that you fear around it. Uh, and Ryan was like, I was doing some research and found like maybe 5 or 6 movies that might be in this category. I love lists and I love homework. So I was like, cool, we're watching all of these movies, which I did. So, and The Mist is the one that probably, other than Annihilation, stuck with me probably the strongest.
I don't.
The Mist, yeah, because the Annihilation, I was like afraid but bewildered and like mystified.
Yeah.
And then I sat down to watch The Mist and I had a pit in my chest the entire time.
Yeah.
I was I was anxious as all get out. I'd stumbled into something that I tend to try and keep away from stuff I do. I play a lot of tabletop role playing games, and one thing that I end up talking about with players is a thing called safety mechanics, which are basically we like, hey, I'm cool role playing this. I don't really want to go into subjects such as these ones.
Okay.
Yeah, and a big one for me is I don't want to spotlight violence against children is a big one that makes me deeply uncomfortable in pretty much anything. So the moment I realized we were in a horror scenario and oh also there's like an 8-year-old boy who's at like the core of all of this, I was stressed the entire time.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the worst situation for me. Um and then they introduced giant bugs. And then I was like, oh, okay, so it's worse. It's actually worse. It's actually just the worst that it could be.
It's like, oh, cool. My fear of child sacrifice met my arachnophobia and gave me my worst
Yeah,
nightmare. Fantastic.
I was I was gonna say, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm chill with bugs. Like I remember being like, I don't think I'm that big a fear of them. And then the mist ones show up and I'm like, I'm fine. Terrifying, actually.
Actually,
Scary.
I like Toby Jones in the movie. I was like, yeah, I think I will get a handgun to deal with my insect problem.
Yeah.
You never know how big they're going to get. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And
I love that.
but yeah, and then surrounding all of that is of course you know, what do you do with the people around you when you're in a life or death situation? And what does that look like? And, Do we want to just get like straight into it? Are we off to the races here?
I think we should
You should give a summary
hit
first, and
hit
then
hit the
I can be
details real
crazy.
quick, and then we'll break into this conversation about the mist. Just for those of you that are wondering, like, well, how are you going to cover the mist in a short little video discussion? We are looking at the mist through the lens of community and how fear affects community, how people use fear to get what they want out of a community in, like James just said, in a time of crisis when people are locked in these survival situations. And a lot of us maybe feel that in today's world where it feels like life or death all the time, and there are people that kind of they take advantage of the fear that we have and use that as a way to influence. So we're using this movie as a way to discuss some bigger themes with these characters. So The Mist came out November 21st, 2007. It is based on The Mist, a novella by Stephen King. We've actually covered a few Stephen King adaptations so far. So maybe I'll put together a playlist of the Stephen King adaptations we've done so far. It is directed by Frank Darabont, who is also famous for The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, two other Stephen King adaptations. Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite movies, and it is got some equally gut-busting, gut-punch scenes. This movie has a all-star cast. It stars Thomas Jane, Laurie Holden, Andre Braugher, 99, Toby Jones, Marcia Gay Harden, and Sam Witwer, who I will just mention is the voice of Darth Maul, and I couldn't love that more.
There you go.
The synopsis of The Mist goes as follows. After a severe thunderstorm, artist David Drayden, played by Thomas Jane, and his young son Billy are trapped in a local supermarket when a supernatural mist, accidentally unleashed by a military experiment at a nearby base, envelops their main town. As bloodthirsty interdimensional creatures pick off survivors, a religious zealot named Mrs. Carmody gains influence over the terrified patrons of the supermarket, eventually demanding that Billy be their sacrifice to appease the creatures. David leads a small group in a desperate escape, only to find his home destroyed and his wife also dead. Running out of gas and seeing no hope of survival, David uses his final bullets to mercy kill everyone in the car, including his own son. Seconds later, the mist clears to reveal that the U.S. Army has successfully moved through their town and rescued survivors, leaving David screaming in agony as he realizes he has killed his son just moments before they were to be saved. So, not exactly a Sunshine and Rainbows movie, but we are going to focus in on the community dynamics. If you have not seen The Mist, I just kind of spoiled it for you, but there is a beauty in this movie that is so gut level, and a lot of it does come down to the community dynamics. So, James, people in the store at the beginning of this event, they see Mrs. Carmody as this strange kind of outsider. She's like the crackpot weirdo that's like, the preacher on the corner that's always saying the end is nigh, that archetype that we get in a lot of movies. But as the events grow and grow and grow, and the fear grows and grows, the community start to kind of believe her message, and they reach a breaking point where they just need someone to tell them what to do. So let's maybe break down a little bit of Mrs. Carmody and why people eventually turn around to her message where she's just telling them who to point their fear at.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is Carmody creates the kind of like, the internal threat of this film as far as, you know, in comparison to the external. Because the external is, hey, there's this mist and a bunch of things in it, and if you step into it, you are almost certainly going to be mauled to death.
By a
And that's
tentacle
maybe the
monster or
nicest
a spider, whatever.
Yeah. I was gonna say, and yeah, and being mauled to death is maybe the nicest thing these things can do.
Yeah.
But they you know, um it's very like the easy one here is like it's Animal Farm or it's Lord of the Flies. It's somebody, people in a situation who are unsure of what's going on. They're literally being accosted by otherworldly forces beyond their imaginations. Um, and in the middle of it is this one woman who has been so radically out there for so long that suddenly, there's enough cognitive dissonance happening that what she's saying starts to kind of make sense to people.
Right.
And I think part of this comes to the fact that, like, when we as people are unsure of who we are in our own individuality and we aren't comfortable with understanding what we know and what we don't know, we are looking for ways to satisfy our uncertainty.
Mm,
And, suddenly a religious crackpot who's been talking about the end days since before all of this suddenly starts making a lot of sense when you're looking around and you're stuck in a small convenient, like a small grocery store with like people you tangentially maybe know and don't know what's going to happen next. You have people who are sleeping on the floors in between aisles. You have large noises that are happening all the time as something slams into a window, as someone else gets eaten by something or gets pulled away. Um, and you are yourself looking for anything that might satisfy your sense of survival.
mm,
Um, and for a person who doesn't know what that might look like, who isn't confident in themselves, who is great on the regular, just kind of, you know, letting themselves live a life that they think is totally fine. Suddenly you have this person who's like, no, this is right. I'm the right person here. You should listen to me because clearly what I'm saying makes sense to you. And that really kind of defines the two factions in this movie, because there's essentially two of them. There's Mrs. Carmody and the masses, for lack of a better term. And then there's David and the people the movie wants us to believe are making sense.
right.
And I think the thing that's interesting here too is I don't know how David would react normally, but the fact his kids here actually rapidly changes how he approaches the situation.
For sure. Like, he has to think of Billy first before he does anything else. And he has to think about the well being of his son, which is ironic given the end of the movie.
Yeah.
One thing I find interesting about the onset of this movie is everyone at the beginning is trying to figure out, like, should we even be taking the mist seriously? There is a third faction at the beginning where,
Yeah, the skeptics.
yeah, they're like, this is not a real thing. Like, so everybody in this grocery store is receiving fear of the unknown. That's a big theme in cosmic horror. Those that are familiar with the subgenre know that. But this movie does a great job of exposing us to different ideologies that grow around the fear of the unknown. There's the rejection of the unknown, where it's like, this is not a real thing. Why are we even having this discussion? We're leaving. That gets met with destruction, because the rejection of the unknown gives almost the unknown way more power, and immediately more power. The Mrs. Carmody faction develops around this way of trying to explain or pacify the unknown to the degradation of the individual. The fear grows and grows and grows and grows, and we then start to blame the individuals inside the community for what is happening outside of it. And David's faction is trying to rationalize their fear, not to ignore the fear, but to think through, how do we conquer this fear? How do we handle this fear? So, James, in the building of communities, kind of what you built your master's work on in that paper,
Mhm.
how do you see Mrs. Carmody and David as leaders using their influence to meet the fear that is happening in this grocery store? How do you see them as comparing and contrasting each other?
I think the interesting thing here is it's hard to tell if Mrs. Carmody actually cares about relationship to any of these people or if he just cares about being right or being in power. Even as we mentioned, his kid makes a big difference here, but ultimately the like quote David faction are people who are like, I'm looking out for the weakest of us. I'm looking out for the person who can't do this. I'm looking out for my neighbor who might need support or help in this situation, even if I'm not 100% confident that I'm capable. But what I am confident in is that I believe that we should be looking out for each other, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that. This is I don't I mean, I think about this a lot in terms of, you know, modern
People.
Western politics. I was gonna say, yeah. He doesn't really. I don't know if he really cares about finding a solution. If he cares about being right, if he
Yeah.
cares about the fact that I believe in this stuff, and now these people are rallying around me because now I'm being justified in my black job beliefs, for lack of a better term. There's no exchange there. She's not encouraging people to discuss with her. She's asking people to, you know, I will give you the answer you're looking for. I just need you to surrender all rational thought and surrender and accept that
Mhm.
I'm in the right here.
Accept no other thought but mine.
Yeah. And like, you know, not to leave the like skeptics out of the situation, but like, you know, the energy of I think this is BS and I'm confident in my own skills. The overconfidence there is also still ignoring the aspect of like, but what do we do about, whether or not the fear is real, people are afraid. So what are we doing about that other than feeding fuel to the fire by being like, well, forget everybody else. I don't care about them. I know this is dumb, so I'm going to go leave and like do it. And like, as much as I spent our preamble ragging on this character existing, the person in the beginning who's like, I have children that I need to go and like rescue, and everybody else is paralyzed by fear and unable to like make that step towards her. Um, it's kind of hanging the lampshade on the entire film of the like, you know, am I capable of putting aside my own fear to assist the people that are in my community? Am I capable of trusting other people's feelings about something and treating it with a sense of respect or gratitude that we can kind of understand from each other here? And Mrs. Carmody, like the people looking for her, wants the certainty. They want to know what the answers are and be like, I have the answers. And conveniently doesn't really provide solutions.
Exactly. She provides scapegoats.
Yeah, this person's responsible. We should punish this person for existing, I guess.
The scene that I mean, I'm assuming we're both kind of referring to the same scene where Sam Witwer's character Jessup is one of the soldiers. He's just realized that his two fellow soldiers have hung themselves in the back room because they knew something they were doing at the base was contributing to this problem they were in. And it's an
Yeah,
incredibly low moment. And Jessup is he's in shock. He's like, I didn't think they would actually do it. Like they said they were going to do it. And I didn't think they would actually do it. Jessup goes on this journey out to the pharmacy to do the right thing, to go get medicine, to do, be the selfless citizen soldier that he is. And he comes back to a mob. It's not this ragtag motley crew anymore of people using their skills and their passion for others to do the best thing for everybody else. He goes back to the mob, and the second that he shows a little bit of contrition or guilt, Mrs. Carmody jumps down his throat and says, "You're to blame." And he's like, "I heard that that might be the thing we were doing." And she's like, "No, no, no. You've gone from being not complicit to showing that bit of weakness. Now you are entirely complicit. You're the scapegoat. You're the reason." And the people just tear him apart. They stab him and they throw him out of the grocery store. And the last thing you see is his like handprint, and one of the creatures takes him away. That was the most clear example of scapegoating someone. And then at the end of that scene, James, what's gotten fixed? Nothing.
no. If you want to speak entirely in like data points, you lost an asset is what happened.
Exactly.
And like it's yeah, it is the raving of this like group that destabilizes the whole situation. I was flashing through like a TV tropes page before this because I was trying to find character names because I'm
Yeah.
bad at remembering names and characters. And someone talks about the fact that it's like, you know, I don't necessarily condone this in real life, but like someone shoots and kills Mrs. Carmody, and like one of the first things that happens is someone like thanks them for it because it's like, well, yeah, because she was destabilizing and causing, her existence was now at the point where it was causing danger to everybody else that was around her. Now the reaction is responded to with chaos, which is usually what happens when you lose your quote leader. But yeah, I mean it's so easy. It was so easy to look at this in the discussion of the existential and thinking about what we are as people and how we like want to how we want to exist and that stuff. Um, I don't talk about it a lot with Kierkegaard, but like Kierkegaard is an existentialist for lack of a better term. So his kind of focus has always been on like how are you as a person engaging with the world and how do you kind of come to your own kind of conclusions and decisions? Which is why I kind of come back to David's group as like, we're scared, we're out of our element, we don't know what we're doing, but I know, I don't even really know you that well, but we are people who are in a situation together. We need to do what we can to try and figure out how to solve it.
Yeah.
And we have David's an artist. We have like a guy who like works in the town. We have like, you have a group of people who are like just normal, average people
Yeah.
who are dependent on each other to try and find a solution. And that's the difference, right? That's the I don't have to be Superman to be the solution to this problem. I need to just be able to understand what I can offer and listen to other people, and then maybe together we can find some way to kind of work through this by building on each other and supporting each other, and not by electing a leader and allowing them to make our decisions for us.
Yeah, there is this. I think there's this obvious, especially in the real world where we, but but are men who contribute to the polis, the people around us, and good citizens, and I truly do believe most people want to be good citizens. They want to be a good well-meaning individual within the context of a larger community, a larger group, whether it be our town, our county, our state, our province, our country, our world. Here is where the David Mrs. Carmody difference, I think, is very indicative of what we as individuals value. David, you said he's an artist, which, by the way, Thomas Jane is not an artist. He is Thomas Jane was made in a lab somewhere to be an action hero. And so
David, the character, is an artist,
yeah,
to be clear.
David is an
yes.
artist. Thomas Jane is the Punisher.
Correct.
So I just found that really funny when the opening scene is him like painting, and I'm just like, bullshit. When is he gonna grab the fire axe? But I loved Thomas Jane in this movie. I thought he was fantastic. David leads his group, the skeptics, the pragmatists in the
Yeah.
story. He leads them with a sense of honesty and resource. He's thinking, okay, what do we have at our disposal to solve the problem in front of us? And he's honest about it. Like, hey, if we go out to the pharmacy, like, it's dangerous. If we try to get to my vehicle, it's going to be dangerous. But he's very honest with people about what, to his knowledge, what they're about to walk into. Mrs. Carmody, however, is also unsure about what's out there, whether she admits it or not. But she supplements the honesty with turning up the volume. And she gets more certain about the things she is uncertain about, because David's honest. He's like, hey, I don't know what's out there, but I'm honest about what I don't know is out there. She doesn't know what's out there, and she turns up the certainty of like, this is God's judgment. This is our fault. Expiation, expiation, expiation. I had to look at the Oxford Dictionary to be like, expiation. She wants payment of sin. She wants retributive justice to be done upon other people. And she conveniently never points the finger at herself, because that would be an admission that she's not actually the voice of God. Right before she dies, she even says, like, I have gotten a few predictions right. I'm the closest thing to God you guys have right now. That is an incredibly egotistical thing to say. But
yeah, and
that difference is so stark, and it's so indicative of what we as individuals value in leadership. So I cut you off there, but I just wanted to finish that thought before you jump in.
Yeah,
I'm sure a great explanation of that process.
All I was really going to say is, and she's wrong. Like it doesn't help, right? Like she's like, oh, I predicted things that are right. Cool. So what?
We're still in a grocery store surrounded by a bunch of like demons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that loudness, that certainty, like being drawn to that. You said earlier that oftentimes people will jump on our uncertainty, and they will respond to it with certainty that might not even be, they might not even believe it. Like Mrs. Carmody might not even believe what she's saying. I think a part of her does, but like that is a terrifying thing, to think in terms of influence.
Well, it's funny you mentioned like Thomas Jane as like an action hero, right? Like as like this like the Punisher, like this type of like person and stuff. I think that there's a lot of media for good or for ill that constantly wants to make heroes that are going to solve the problems for you. Um, there's a lot of media that tells us about like, I mean, you could probably speak to this better than I can, but like Caped Crusaders were made to inspire people. They were made to be like, you can be this person, you're whoever you want to be, et cetera, et cetera. There are other people who have taken that idea and been like, eventually we will have the guy that's going to solve the problem. And the Mrs. Carmody is the I am the guy who's going to solve the problem. And David's not being a hero about it. He's a person who's caring about his community. He's a person that, you know, yes, Billy is the priority, but also like depending on who you ask, that he should be. He's the child in the situation.
Right.
And in that way he becomes the lens that we as the audience rationalize ourselves at, right? Because the moment someone is like, oh, we should like kill the kid, everyone's like, no, no, no way. No, that's not happening. And it also leads into the literal sledgehammer of this movie, which is its last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like that's its own completely different conversation because
Yeah.
that is David clings to this hope that, eventually the mist will dissipate or like we can drive far enough to where the mist will end and maybe this nightmare will be over.
Yeah.
Mrs. Carmody is very, very almost giddy at the idea of staying within the nightmare because inside of the crisis and inside of the nightmare is the only place she has power. She is given the power. She has the power that people give her. She has this influence over people based on the fears that they need sedated for the time. Thus, she was a nobody before that supermarket.
Yeah.
And we're told that at the beginning. It's only in this moment of crisis where people are not thinking rationally and logically and empathetically and compassionately. It's only in these moments that her kind of bile makes sense to people. And that is so sad. I don't know which ending is
Yeah.
sadder.
It's there's I think it's pretty commonly reflected, right? Which is that we have a world where people are afraid for their livelihoods. And this has happened in waves throughout history or however you want to like perceive it and such. But like you ultimately have people who are just seeking the person that will tell them that everything's going to be okay. Whether that's for your personal status, for your family, your career, your whatever it is that you're like looking for and stuff like that. And what people want to convince you of is that there are some people who will lead you the right way and there are others that will lead you astray. They aren't asking you to choose a path other than, I'm going to give you two options. Your two options are follow me and be fine or go off the path and be destroyed forever.
Two
But,
killer
you know,
options.
yeah, but no one's like going and being like, hey, this is scary. There's a lot of wild stuff that's going on right now. Like, what can we do? What is mine and what is our conversation about this? Are we capable of not trying to superimpose each other's ideas on each other, but synthesize and connect? Are we capable of listening to the other people that are around us and being like, are we asking the right questions? Are we asking questions at all? Are we being allowed to ask questions?
Hmm.
And like, ultimately you're not seeking power. You're seeking community. You're seeking the strength that comes from being connected to people. I could just say, you're seeking love and understanding from the people that are around you because that's what a lot of us are looking for is the thing that will make us not the thing that'll make us whole, but the thing that we can offer that we can also receive, the thing that allows us to understand that we can't fill all the gaps and we can't solve all the problems, at least by ourselves.
Yeah. That's so good. I want to just kind of, as we all hop in the station wagon. Don't worry, there's not a gun in the station wagon this time. We're just gonna drive. Not gonna have that sad ending. As we kind of try to navigate our way out of the mist here, James, I just want to end on this one thought that when it comes to fear and how these two leaders interact with fear and those around them that are feeling fear, they're feeling true anxieties. Like I don't want, I in no way do I want to take away the fear that these characters are feeling. They do not know. The future is so uncertain. The future is terrifying. The future is nerve-wracking. We see people flop sides throughout this movie based on the fear they feel in the moment. David, to the best of his ability, he looks at people's fears and he thinks, what could, if we lean into this fear, is there hope on the other side? Are we willing to risk ourselves in the direction of hope? And Mrs. Carmody looks at it and says, he looks at all these fearful faces in front of her. She's like, I'll bet you I can leverage this fear to pinpoint and grow the hatred inside of these people. And at least at the end of the day, keep myself safe. Because I guarantee you, as she starts to recommend human sacrifice really, really quickly, by the way, that's unsettling in its own right. She's not going to
Oh,
volunteer herself. And she has, the David is having these committee meetings where it's like, okay, what do we have? What can we do? She has built a pyramid where only she gets to sit at the top. And if you question her, you end up getting Jessuped. You end up getting othered. You end up getting labeled as like, well, they're the radical that we need to sacrifice next. They're the person that we need to throw out to the creatures. They're the problem. They're the problem. They're the problem. And really, all that person did was not agree with you instantly.
you have a group that wants to fear to be gone and someone who claims they can do that, and you have a group that says, I'm scared too, so let's figure out if we can find a way through this together, because we're going to be afraid, and that's the default. Yeah.
Well, just in terms of community, and how
Mhm.
Kierkegaard speaks to this, is there anything that maybe to leave people with how to both maintain our authenticity, our individuality in moments of fear so that we don't fall maybe susceptible to someone who just feeds on fear to make themselves more influential? Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think a part of it is reaching far back in my brain right now. There's something that kind of like talk about the idea of like, Kierkegaard warns against like self-reflection in the way of like mirroring yourself after the people that are around you. But does talk about the like, finding your own path, trying to exist within your own space. Like, back to the kind of the existentialist perspective, of like, we live in a world and we exist within it and we need to find sort of like our path and things like that. As I joke, it's like Nietzsche is the nothing matters, so you should just live in your own existence and do whatever you want. And Kierkegaard is the, hey, your existence on this place, you exist, and that's important. So, allow yourself to be witness to your own ideas. I mean, I think I've said it a lot, but it's like question everything. And I don't mean that cynically, but I mean that in a like, hey, why am I listening to this? Like, what about it is enticing to me? Or, this doesn't sound right to me. Why is that? Am I like, is this because I'm basing this off of people I know and I can trust? And I'm reflecting, am I listening to my own sort of like viewpoint and my own values and being sure in that? Or am I letting myself be swayed by the thing that will offer me comfort? Kierkegaard never claims it'll be easy. In fact, he claims often it will be difficult because to do it right means that other people will hate you. And that's kind of like, that's kind of the core of it. You have to believe in yourself. And this is like a cheesy way of saying it, but it's like you need to trust who you are as a person. And you need to trust that you can rely on that to help you make decisions, good decisions. You need to be able to lean on that to be like, am I falling in line with this viewpoint because it's easy? Because they're offering me things that I'm seeking because I'm insecure about it? Or is it you know, I'm attracted to this because it's something that I'm worried about.
hmm.
So instead of allowing myself to let that soothe my worry, how am I going to leverage that towards, bringing it towards other people that might share the same ideas with me, but also might be willing to like work on it. Alternatively, like, you know, seeking out somebody else who like doesn't have that worry for whatever reason, because it's like in some cases it could just be a like, oh, they've been through this before and they are like, I know how you're feeling and I can sympathize and I can relate. But yeah, it's really important to understand what you believe in and to understand what you want to achieve in the world as you exist within it. And I think that, yeah, I think that reflects in this pretty well. Like you have people who are seeking the answer, and you have people who are not looking for the answer because instead they're trying to figure out how to live.
Yeah. God. I think the thing, I love the way you summarize that. The thing I really, as we shut it down, and I just thank people that are checking this out. If you gotten to this point, really appreciate it. Really appreciate James's time as well, talking about this movie. That it just makes me all warm and fuzzy inside. The thing that I just walk out of this movie with is a realization that when a way forward, a future is forecasted to us, a future based in our fears is inherently empty because it leaves us trapped where we are. The fear that these people feel following this religious fanatic, and I don't just mean that as like firing shots at people that believe, strongly in their religious beliefs. It can be any kind of fanaticism that fixates on the fear of others. It is fraught with this hollowness, this emptiness, because eventually we're still just stuck in the grocery store. Like we're still just stuck where we are. And that's what I think I'll leave the mist with. I guess, James, thank you so much for educating me on
Yeah,
community and how Kierkegaard maybe would have looked at the mist. I'm sure he would have had a hoot with this one. I'm sure this would have given him no shortage of things to think about and say. But appreciate it, man. If people want to check out
yeah,
more, we've done another chat with James about the descent. So that one again, it was just a lot of warm and fuzzies, and a lot of hugs, and butterfly kisses and all that stuff. If you want more Kierkegaard, we talked a little bit about Kierkegaard in the descent, but also we had a Saw episode with my buddy Josh Patterson where we talked about the value of life and what Kierkegaard maybe could say about that. Yeah, thank you everybody. Until we see you in the next video, have a great rest of your day.
bye.
Mr. James. Oh my God. I'm gonna